That has made the AS90 look powerful, but they don't show the part that actually makes, let's call it the AS90. I use this thing at Bosnia, trust me, what you see in games is only half the story. The recoil, the reload, the coordination, and some details the game completely ignores. It's the part that actually made it dangerous, not just to the enemy. I'll break it down, what they got right, what they got wrong, and what it was really like behind the gutty. So, the AS90 10. I used this in Bosnia. I was deployed for 6 months in an AS90 gun regiment. What we're conducting here is called a gun raid. So oftentimes in actual combat, you'll get the guns far ahead of the other lines doing a gun raid. So you get in, fire a mission, and quickly revert back. So that's what I'm doing here. I had it all good, but two didn't. Guy got down on the river and got me. Anyway, AS90. So here's the problem. They've modelled the gun really, really well. Looks really good. Don't get me wrong. Can't drive the gun anywhere without a barrel clamp being on, and you definitely can't fire it on the move. If you fired the AS90 on the move, the recoil will roll the gun. So there's a big problem. But then again, it's a game. It is what it is. If you go in and you have a look at the X-ray on the gun, you see where the batteries are. That shows that they're on the forward left side of the chassis, and that's incorrect. How I know this is we did a firepower demonstration in Bosnia, and the fuel extractor, which is on the barrel, there's like a little extra tube, if you want, for want of a better word, on the barrel. If that blocks up with dirt and dust, which it does, when you open the breech, all the fumes come back into the turret. We did a firepower demonstration, and the fuel extractor was blocked. So all the fumes, all the cordite fumes, entered the turret, and they did a burst rate, boom, 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 3 rounds, filled the turret up with cordite smoke, which mixed with the lead acid batteries, produced toxic fumes, and nearly killed all the crew. So yeah, we were standing outside watching it, and then all you see is the doors popping open from one of the guns, smoke pouring everywhere, and then just bodies being pulled out of the gun. So yeah, there's parts to it that are extremely dangerous, and there's other parts that are pretty cool. In saying that, the load rate on the gun is not correct either. I'm not going to go into specifics as the gun is still being used in combat. I was Ukrainian, so I'm not going to talk about survey, how it's not dated, shit like that. The Russians may or may not know, but I'm not going to tell anybody anyway. But the other nasty thing, so to speak. So with the crew, when it's got a flip rammer on the breech. So you have 1 round on the rammer, 1 round on the cap. There's a feeder, and then rounds in the tray out behind you. After each round gets flipped into the breech, the second guy has to ram the charges in behind the round. If somebody accidentally clicks ram while you've got your arm in the breech, you've got 2 choices. Pull your arm out and the rammer will cut your arm off. Or 2, which is the preferred method, keep your arm in there and it snaps your arm between your elbow and your shoulder. So yeah, a few fun things that go on in the gun. The other thing that can be a problem with these vehicles, look, don't get me wrong, it's also a piece of kit. There's just certain things that they fail to sort out. So if you look at the fuel tank and the gun, it's across the hull, but I think in reality it's down the side. There's 2 fuel tanks, one high, one low, and it's connected by a piece of rubber between the fuel cell. This rubber tends to perish, and then you get what happened to us. The rubber perished, the diesel started leaking out of the fuel cell into the hull, and in the bottom of the hull is the hydrogen gas suspension. Above that is a drip tray where all the oil and XPOL and lubricants and shit and stuff fills up. When you brake, all that POL, all the petrol oils and lubricants slosh forward into the engine bay, hits the exhaust and catches fire. And then you've got a 155mm 45-ton gun full of high explosive ammunition on fire. And the best thing a British Army officer can do is get all upset because you're doing soil contamination, not quite understanding that if the gun explodes, it's going to take out good 400 or 500 meters of everybody. Yeah, fun times. And there's another, this is a sneaky one here. So because of the reload rate in the game, fired around, he thought he's got plenty of time. No. Take that. So yeah, engine. There's these little bushes on the side of the pack, about the size of a 50 cent piece. Not very big, not very shiny, however vital to running the engine, and they tend to wear out after about more, I would have thought not very long, because we had them to be replacing them all the time. And for a 15% size bush, so to speak, it took 3 hours to take the hull armor off, lift the pack, pull it off, put it on, put the pack in, put the hull armor on. Just these little finicky things that made it a nightmare to service. Track bashing was unreal because it has split rubber pads. So if you look at the tracks, there's 2 lines. So for every link in the track, you've got to knock off 2 pads and then replace it. So yeah, that takes about 3 days. Yeah. Don't, and that's it. You got to hit each one with a sledgehammer and knock them off. Roll the track forward. Yeah, nah. Not keen on that. And in this game, where you got 3 kills, and then we go into a bit of close S4. There's the final game. So, love my time with the AS90. It is awesome. The Challenger armor recovery and repair vehicle can tow this gun at 90 kilometers an hour on the open road. It's funny watching the Challenger pulling the AS90 passing cars down the road. Yeah, awesome. So burst rate on this is 3 rounds in 10 seconds. The ammo loading system is awesome as well. So you don't actually, once you're in the turret, you don't actually have to move any ammunition because it's all in the rack behind you, and it rolls down into the thinker onto a tray. You pull the tray and feeds it onto the feed tray on the rammer. That flicks over onto the flick rammer. The rammer then punches the round into the breech. Yeah, that's not very top secret, that, but it's not. That's not an auto loader. It's a person loader. The primer for each round is shotgun pack, so that's manually primed. So the gunner, who sits on the right hand side of the turret, he pushes a button and just loads a shotgun shell into the what looks to be a shotgun shell, about the same size as 12 gauge shotgun shell, into the breech. So this video was more me talking jibber jabber, loving the fact that my tank is now in the game. I now have a new favorite tank, and it's a AS90. It is definitely a it's an awesome piece of kit and good for psychological operations. One of the other things we used to do was we would deploy the gun battery outside the local combatants' headquarters. So we were there in Bosnia just after the Dayton Peace Accord had been signed. And so they weren't actually fighting, but what we'd do is we'd deploy all the guns in the middle of the night, point them at their army camp, so they'd all wake up in the morning, yeah, and there's a whole battery of 155 self-propelled AS90s with their barrels pointing directly at the camp. A little bit of psychological play with us, and this is what you got to get. And Bosnia was also where we learned how capus, Bosnia and Iraq is where we learned how capus Russian gear is. So we were actually blowing up. We would do the firepower demonstration, which I mentioned before. That was blowing up actual ex-Yugoslav army equipment fully loaded on the range with our equipment, just to show them what we could do with our gear. Anyway, team, like and subscribe if you got this far, and I'll see you next time.